The boxing bag swayed under my fists like a guilty conscience. Sweat dripped onto the cracked concrete floor of Lou's gym, mixing with tears and broken dreams. I'd been pounding leather for 2 hours straight, trying to beat the suspicion out of my head. It wasn't working. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. You gonna end that bag or marry it? Lou called from behind the counter, his gravelly voice cutting through the humid air. At 72, he'd seen enough fights to know when a man was battling more than just canvas and sand. I unwrapped my hands, the tape stained red from reopened calluses. Neither. Just thinking. Dangerous habit for a guy like you, Danny. Lou was right. Thinking had never been my strong suit. I was better with my hands, fixing engines, building things, solving problems the blue-collar way. But lately, my mind hasn't shut up. It kept replaying little moments, tiny inconsistencies that added up to something I didn't want to face. My phone buzzed. A text from my 16-year-old daughter, Maddie. Mom's making dinner. Says you're probably too busy to come home anyway. Too busy? Right. I'd been working late at my auto shop for weeks, partly because business was good, mostly because home felt like walking into a refrigerator. My wife Ava had grown cold as a January morning and twice as bitter. I drove through our neighborhood's winding streets, past houses that looked like mine but felt warmer. The American dream and vinyl siding and mortgage payments. I'd built my slice of it with these hands, turning a failing garage into the most trusted auto shop in town. 15 years of marriage, one brilliant daughter, and a wife who used to look at me like I hung the moon. Now she looked at me like I'd stolen it. The house was dark except for the kitchen window. I could see shadows moving inside, more than just Ava and Maddie. My stomach tightened as I recognized the silhouette leaning against my counter. Broad shoulders, cocky posture, that same arrogant stance he'd had in high school. Ethan Morrison. I sat in my truck for 5 minutes, watching my wife laugh at something her ex-boyfriend said, watching my daughter smile wider than she had at me in months, watching the life I'd built get redecorated by a man who'd never worked an honest day in his life. The front door opened before I could decide whether to go in or drive away. "Daddy!" Maddie bounced down the steps, all legs and enthusiasm. At 16, she was becoming beautiful in that dangerous way that made me want to lock her in a tower. "You're home early." Business was slow. The lie tasted bitter. Business had been great. I just couldn't stand another night alone with my tools and suspicions. Mom invited Ethan for dinner. Remember him? He used to date Mom in high school. He's got this amazing car dealership now, and he's been helping Mom with some legal stuff for his business. Legal stuff. My wife was a paralegal at Henderson & Associates, the biggest law firm in our small New England town. She'd been working late a lot lately, taking on special projects that required evening meetings. "How thoughtful of him," I said, following Maddie inside. The kitchen smelled like Ava's famous pot roast, the one she used to make for my birthday. Now she was serving it to her high school sweetheart while I worked late, keeping the lights on and the mortgage paid. "Danny." Ethan stood up from my chair at my table, extending a hand like we were old friends. "Great to see you, buddy. Ava's been telling me all about your little garage." Little garage. I'd employed 8 people and serviced half the cars in town, but to Ethan Morrison, I was still the poor kid from the wrong side of the tracks. "It's an auto shop," I corrected, not taking his hand. "And it's not little." Ava appeared at Ethan's elbow, her hand briefly touching his arm, a casual gesture that sent ice through my veins. "Danny, don't be rude. Ethan was just telling us about his expansion plans. He's opening a second lot." "With whose money?" I asked. The question hung in the air like smoke. Ethan's smile flickered. Ava's cheeks flushed. Maddie looked between us, sensing the tension but not understanding it. "Well," Ethan recovered, "I should probably get going. Thanks for dinner, Ava. It was perfect, as always." As always, like he'd been here before, like this was routine. After he left, I helped clear the table in silence. Maddie disappeared upstairs with her phone, leaving Ava and me alone with the dirty dishes and unspoken accusations. "He seems comfortable here," I finally said. "He's an old friend." Ava's voice was carefully neutral. "We've been working together on some contracts. It's perfectly professional." "In our kitchen? I thought it would be nice to have company for dinner. You're never here anyway." There it was. The accusation wrapped in justification. I worked 60-hour weeks to build the life she wanted, and somehow that made me the villain in her story. "I'm here now." "Are you?" She turned to face me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. contempt. When's the last time we talked about anything besides bills and schedules? When's the last time you looked at me like I was more than just the woman who cooks your dinner? The words hit harder than Lou's heavy bag, maybe because they weren't entirely wrong. Somewhere between building a business and raising a daughter, we'd stopped being lovers and become roommates. But that didn't explain the way she'd touched Ethan's arm, or the way she'd lit up when he complimented her cooking. So, you invite your ex-boyfriend over to fix things? Don't be ridiculous. But she couldn't meet my eyes when she said it. That night, I lay awake listening to Ava breathe beside me, wondering when she'd started feeling like a stranger, wondering when I'd become one to her, wondering if Ethan Morrison was just a symptom or the disease itself. I didn't know it yet, but I was about to find out. The next morning brought answers I didn't want. My mother-in-law Janet called while I was changing oil on Mrs. Peterson's Honda. "Danny, we need to talk." Janet had never been my biggest fan, but she'd always been fair. She was old-school Catholic, believed in marriage vows and keeping family business private. If she was calling me, something was seriously wrong. "What's on your mind, Janet?" "It's about Ava." Her voice was tight with disapproval. "And that Morrison boy." My wrench slipped, scraping my knuckles raw. "What about them?" "She's been inviting him over when you're working late. I told her it wasn't right, that she had a husband who deserved better. She just laughed and said you wouldn't understand." The Honda's oil pan blurred in front of me. "How long?" 3 months, maybe more. "Danny, I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner, but I kept hoping she'd come to her senses." 3 months. While I'd been working late to save for Maddie's college fund, my wife had been playing house with her high school boyfriend. While I'd been wondering why she seemed distant, she'd been getting close to someone else. "Janet, I need you to do me a favor." "Anything." "Next time she tells you about one of these dinner parties, let me know." The opportunity came sooner than expected. I was scheduled to drive to Boston for a parts run, a 2-day trip I'd been planning for weeks. The night before I left, Janet called. She's planning something for tomorrow night. A family dinner, she called it. Said she had important news to share. Important news? My stomach dropped like a stone in deep water. "Who's invited?" "Both families. Your parents, me, Maddie, and that Morrison boy." She seemed very excited about it. I sat in my truck outside the house, watching Ava through the kitchen window as she prepared for what I now understood was meant to be my execution. She was making her famous pot roast again, setting the good china, arranging flowers like this was a celebration. Maybe for her it was. I called my foreman and told him to handle the Boston run without me, then I called Janet back. "I need you to do something for me at dinner tomorrow night." "What kind of something?" "The kind that might save my marriage, or end it." The next evening, I parked 3 blocks away and walked through the Hendersons' backyard to reach my own kitchen window. 20 years ago, I would have felt ridiculous skulking around my own property. Now it felt necessary. Through the window, I watched my wife orchestrate what she clearly thought would be the most important dinner party of her life. She'd pulled out all the stops, cloth napkins, wine glasses, even candles. The good silverware that usually only appeared at Christmas gleamed under the dining room chandelier. Ethan arrived first, carrying flowers and a bottle of wine like he was courting her, which, I realized with a sick twist in my gut, he probably was. He kissed her cheek, lingering just a second too long, and handed her a small wrapped box. A gift, for my wife, in my house. My parents arrived next, looking confused but pleased to be included in what they assumed was a normal family gathering. Dad wore his good suit, the one he saved for church and funerals. Mom carried her famous apple pie, the recipe she'd never shared with anyone, not even Ava. Janet came last, and I could see the tension in her shoulders as she hugged her daughter. She knew what was coming, even if she didn't know exactly how I planned to handle it. Maddie fluttered around the table like a butterfly, clearly excited to be part of whatever adult drama was unfolding. At 16, she thought she understood the world. She was about to learn how wrong she could be. I waited until they were all seated, until Ava stood up with her wine glass raised, until the moment she opened her mouth to destroy my life. Then I walked through the front door. "Sorry I'm late," I announced, stepping into the dining room like I belonged there, which I did. Traffic was murder coming back from Boston. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. Ava's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. Ethan's fork clattered against his plate. My parents looked confused. Maddie looked annoyed. Only Janet smiled. "Danny," Mom recovered first, always the peacemaker. "We thought you were out of town." Change of plans. I pulled out the empty chair next to my father, the one Ava hadn't set because she'd thought I wouldn't be there to use it. "Don't let me interrupt. Ava, you looked like you had something important to say." My wife's face had gone pale, then red, then pale again. She set down her wineglass with shaking hands. We were just having a nice family dinner. With Ethan. I nodded toward her high school sweetheart, who was studying his plate like it contained the secrets of the universe. How thoughtful. Though I have to say, it's interesting that my business trip getting canceled is such a surprise. Usually wives know when their husbands are coming home. You didn't call, Ava said weakly. Neither did you. About a lot of things, apparently. Dad cleared his throat. Maybe we should... Stay, I said firmly. Please. Ava clearly has something she wants to share with the family. Don't you, honey? The endearment dripped with sarcasm. Ava flinched like I'd slapped her. Janet chose that moment to speak up. Actually, Ava, before you say anything, I think there's something your husband should know. Mom, please. No. Janet's voice carried the authority of a woman who'd raised 5 children and buried 1 husband. Danny deserves the truth. We all do. She turned to face me, her expression a mixture of sympathy and determination. Your wife has been inviting Ethan here regularly while you've been working. She told me she was planning to use tonight's dinner to announce that she's leaving you. The words hit the table like a bomb. My mother gasped. Dad's face went hard as granite. Maddie's mouth fell open. Ethan looked like he wanted to crawl under the table and disappear. Ava looked like she wanted to murder her mother. That's not... I never said... she stammered. You said Danny was boring. Janet continued relentlessly. You said he worked too much and didn't appreciate you. You said Ethan made you feel alive again, like you did in high school. You said you deserved better than a mechanic who smelled like motor oil. Each word was a knife twist. I felt my parents' eyes on me, saw the pity in their faces, and something inside me hardened into steel. A mechanic, I repeated slowly. That's what I am to you? After 15 years of marriage, after building a business that supports this family, after working 60-hour weeks so you could have this house and Maddie could have everything she wanted, I'm just a mechanic who smells like motor oil. Danny, that's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor I'd refinished with my own hands. When you were planning this little dinner party to humiliate me in front of both our families, what exactly did you mean? Ethan finally found his voice. Look, Danny, maybe we should talk about this privately. Privately? I laughed, and it sounded bitter even to my own ears. Like you and my wife have been talking privately for 3 months, like the private conversations you had in my kitchen while I was working late to pay for the food you were eating. It's not like that, Ava said desperately. We're just friends. We were just catching up. Friends. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the photos I'd taken 2 nights ago. Is this what you call friendship? I showed them the picture of Ava and Ethan kissing in the parking lot of the Riverside Motel, then the one of them going into room 237, then the one of them coming out 2 hours later, her hair messed up and his shirt wrinkled. The silence was deafening. My mother started crying quietly. Dad's hands clenched into fists. Maddie stared at the phone like she couldn't process what she was seeing. Where did you get these? Ava whispered. I followed you Tuesday night when you said you were working late on a big case. Imagine my surprise when your big case turned out to be Ethan Morrison's zipper. Danny, Mom gasped. Sorry, Mom, but I think we're past worrying about language, don't you? I pocketed the phone and looked around the table. So here's what's going to happen. Ava, you want out of this marriage? Fine. You can have your divorce. But you're not getting the house, you're not getting alimony, and you're sure as hell not getting to play the victim. You can't just... I can, and I will. See, while you were playing house with your boyfriend, I was talking to a lawyer. A good one. Better than anyone at Henderson and Associates, I'd bet. Turns out adultery still means something in this state, especially when you have photographic evidence. Ethan stood up abruptly. I should go. Sit down, I said quietly. The tone made him freeze. You wanted to be part of this family dinner, you're going to stay for dessert. Danny, please, Ava tried again. Can't we discuss this reasonably? Reasonably? I laughed again. You plan to ambush me at a family dinner, humiliate me in front of my parents, and destroy our marriage for a man who's been married 3 times and owns more debt than assets. But sure, let's be reasonable. I turned to Ethan, who was sweating despite the air conditioning. Tell me, Ethan, what exactly do you see in my wife? Is it her sparkling personality, or the fact that she comes with a house and a business that could help you out of your financial troubles? I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Morrison Motors is 3 months behind on its lot rent. You owe the bank $200,000, and your credit rating is somewhere south of terrible. But Ava doesn't know that, does she? She thinks you're successful. The color drained from Ethan's face. How did you? Small town? Big mouth? Your banker plays poker with my accountant. Amazing what people talk about when they've had a few beers. I looked at my wife, saw the confusion and dawning horror in her eyes as she realized her knight in shining armor was riding a repoed horse. So, here's the deal, I continued. Ethan, you're going to get up, walk out of my house, and never contact my wife again. If I see you, if I hear you've called her, if you so much as drive down my street, I'll make sure everyone in town knows exactly how broke you really are. You can't threaten me. I'm not threatening you. I'm promising you. And Ava? I turned to my wife, who was crying now, makeup running down her cheeks like black rain. You want a divorce? You'll get one, but you'll get it on my terms, not yours. I walked to the front door and held it open. Ethan, your exit. He left without another word, practically running to his car. I watched through the window as he fumbled with his keys, desperate to escape the wreckage of whatever plan he and Ava had cooked up. When I turned back to the dining room, my family was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Well, I said, sitting back down and reaching for the mashed potatoes. Who wants to talk about the weather? The next morning, I woke up alone. Ava had spent the night at her mother's house, taking Maddie with her. The house felt different without them, not empty exactly, but cleaner somehow, like an infected wound that had finally been drained. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table where, 12 hours ago, my wife had planned to destroy my life. The morning sun streamed through windows I'd installed myself, illuminating the life I'd built with my own hands, a life that was apparently worth so little to the woman I'd shared it with. My phone rang. Lou's gravelly voice cut through my brooding. Heard you had some excitement last night? Small towns, news traveled faster than gossip, and gossip traveled at light speed. Where'd you hear that? Janet stopped by this morning, wanted to make sure you were okay, said you handled yourself pretty well. Did I? Because I feel like I just blew up my life. Son, your life was already blown up. You just finally noticed the crater. Lou was right, as usual. The marriage had been dying for months, maybe years. I'd just been too busy working to see it, too invested in the idea of what we'd built to notice when the foundation started cracking. What do I do now? Now? Now you stop being the victim and start being the villain. Sometimes that's the only role left worth playing. I spent the morning at the shop, losing myself in the familiar rhythm of diagnosis and repair. Cars didn't lie to you, they didn't cheat on you. When something was broken, you could see it, fix it, make it better than it was before. Around noon, my lawyer called. Danny, it's Tom Bradley. I've got some good news and some bad news about your situation. Tom had handled the legal work when I bought the shop. He was a straight shooter, which in my experience was rare among lawyers. Give me the bad news first. Your wife hired Henderson and Associates this morning. They're going to fight the adultery angle, claim the photos were taken without consent, try to make you look like a stalker. My stomach tightened. And the good news? Henderson and Associates doesn't know I've got copies of your wife's text messages. What text messages? The ones she sent to Ethan Morrison over the past 3 months. Turns out your phone plan includes message backups for all family devices. Very convenient for billing purposes. Very inconvenient for cheating spouses. I felt a smile tug at the corner of my mouth. How inconvenient? Let's just say your wife has a very colorful way of describing her feelings for Mr. Morrison, and her feelings about you. I particularly enjoyed the one where she called you a boring loser who thinks changing oil is a career. The words stung, but they also freed something inside me. The last vestige of guilt I'd been carrying evaporated like morning dew. Tom, I want you to do me a favor. What kind of favor? The kind that makes sure everyone understands exactly who they're dealing with. That afternoon, I drove to Morrison Motors. The lot looked exactly like what it was. A failing business run by a man who'd peaked in high school. Half the cars had been there so long they'd grown dust like fur. The office trailer needed paint, and the sign was missing 2 letters. Ethan was inside, on the phone with someone who was clearly not happy with him. I understand you need the payment, but I need more time, he was saying. Just another month, maybe 2. I knocked on the door frame. He looked up, saw me, and his face went white. I'll call you back, he said quickly, hanging up. Rough day? I asked, stepping inside uninvited. What do you want, Danny? Just wanted to see how business was going. Sounds like it's going great. He tried to puff up, reclaim some of the arrogance he'd shown at my dinner table. My business is none of your concern. Actually, it is. See, when you're sleeping with my wife, your problems become my problems. Especially when she's planning to leave me for you. I'd hate for her to be disappointed when she finds out her new boyfriend can't even keep the lights on. Get out. In a minute. I sat down in the chair across from his desk, making myself comfortable. First, I want to make sure we understand each other. You're broke. Your business is failing. You owe money to people who don't like to wait for payment, and my wife was your ticket out. That's not true, isn't it? Come on, Ethan. We've known each other since high school. You were always looking for the easy way out, the shortcut, the angle that would get you what you wanted without having to work for it. Ava was just your latest scheme? He stood up, trying to loom over me. At 6'2", he had 3 inches on me, but I'd been in enough fights to know that size wasn't everything. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Then explain this. I pulled out my phone and showed him a screenshot of his credit report. 7 maxed-out credit cards, 2 liens against the business, a second mortgage on your house that's underwater by $40,000. Should I go on? How did you get that? Amazing what you can find out when you know the right people. Your ex-wife was very chatty when I called her this morning. Seems she's still bitter about the alimony you stopped paying 6 months ago. The fight went out of him like air from a punctured tire. He slumped back into his chair, looking older than his 42 years. What do you want? I want you to stay away from my wife. I want you to stop taking her calls. I want you to disappear from her life like you never existed. And if I don't? I leaned forward, letting him see the steel in my eyes. Then I make sure everyone in town knows exactly what kind of man you really are. Starting with your customers, moving on to your creditors, and finishing with that sweet old lady who runs the church fundraiser you've been promising to sponsor. You're bluffing. Am I? Tell you what, let's find out. I'll start with a nice big sign in front of my shop. Don't buy cars from cheaters and deadbeats. What do you think? Catchy? He stared at me for a long moment, and I saw the exact second when he realized I wasn't the same man who'd meekly endured his presence at my dinner table. Fine, he said finally. I'll stay away from Ava. Good choice. I stood up and headed for the door. Oh, and Ethan? If I find out you've contacted her, if I hear you've been spreading stories about me, if you so much as mention her name in public, I'll make sure your creditors know exactly where to find you. Some of them are my customers. They trust my judgment. I left him sitting in his failing office, surrounded by the wreckage of his latest scheme. It felt good, better than I'd expected. That evening, I got a call from Maddie. Dad, Mom wants to know when you're going to stop being crazy and let us come home. Is that what she called it? Crazy? She said you humiliated her in front of the whole family. She said you're acting like a different person. Maybe I am a different person. Maybe I needed to be. I don't understand. You will, sweetheart. Someday you'll understand that sometimes the people we love disappoint us, and sometimes we have to decide whether to keep letting them do it. Are you and Mom getting divorced? The question hung between us like a bridge I wasn't ready to cross. I don't know yet, but I know things can't go back to the way they were. Why not? People make mistakes. Can't you forgive her? Some mistakes are too big to forgive, Maddie. Some choices change everything. After I hung up, I sat in my empty house and wondered if I was doing the right thing. Then I remembered the look on Ava's face when she'd planned to destroy my life in front of my parents. The casual cruelty of it. The calculation. Lou was right. Sometimes the only role left worth playing was the villain. I was just getting started. 3 days later, Ava came home. She walked through the front door like nothing had happened, like she was returning from a weekend trip instead of fleeing the scene of her own attempted execution. We need to talk, she said, setting her purse on the kitchen counter. Do we? I didn't look up from the newspaper. I thought you'd said everything you needed to say at dinner the other night. Danny, please. I know you're angry, but we can work this out. For Maddie's sake, if nothing else. For Maddie's sake. I folded the paper and looked at her. Really looked at her. When had she started wearing so much makeup? When had her smiles become so calculated? You mean for the sake of the daughter you were willing to put through a divorce rather than work on our marriage? That's not fair. Fair? I laughed. You plan to ambush me at a family dinner, humiliate me in front of my parents, and run off with a broke car salesman. But I'm the one being unfair? She sat down across from me, reaching for my hand. I pulled it away. I made a mistake, she said. I got confused, caught up in old feelings. But it's over now. Ethan and I, we're not seeing each other anymore. I know, I made sure of that. Her eyes narrowed. What did you do? I had a conversation with your boyfriend, explained the situation. He decided you weren't worth the trouble. You threatened him. I informed him. There's a difference. She stood up, pacing to the window. This isn't you, Danny. You're not vindictive. You're not cruel. What's happened to you? I grew up. Took me 42 years, but I finally figured out that being nice doesn't mean being stupid. Being faithful doesn't mean being blind. Being a good husband doesn't mean being a doormat. So what now? You're going to punish me forever? I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. She turned back to me, and for a moment I saw a flash of the woman I'd married. Vulnerable, uncertain, almost young again. Can't we try again? Go to counseling? Work on our problems? What problems, Ava? The problem where I work too much to support our family? The problem where I'm too boring for your taste? The problem where I smell like motor oil because I actually work for a living? I never said... You said all of that and more. I've got the text messages to prove it. Her face went pale. You read my private messages? They were on the family plan. Technically, I pay for them, so they're my messages too. Want to hear some of the highlights? There's the one where you called me a pathetic loser who thinks he's hot stuff because he can fix cars. Or the one where you told Ethan you were stuck with a man who had no ambition and no class. That one was particularly charming. She sank back into her chair, the fight going out of her. Danny, I was angry. People say things they don't mean when they're angry. For 3 months? You were angry for 3 months? I felt trapped, like my life was passing me by, like I was settling for less than I deserved. Less than you deserved. I nodded slowly. You know what I think you deserve, Ava. I think you deserve exactly what you're going to get. Something in my tone made her look up sharply. What does that mean? It means I've been thinking about our situation, about what comes next, and I've got a proposition for you. What kind of proposition? I pulled an envelope from my jacket pocket and slid it across the table. Open it. Inside were 2 sets of documents, divorce papers and a property settlement agreement. You want out of this marriage? Fine, sign these and you can have your freedom, but you're going to earn it. She scanned the papers, her face growing paler with each page. This gives you everything. The house, the business, full custody of Maddie. That's right. I can't agree to this. It's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Fair would be splitting everything 50-50. Even though you contributed nothing to building my business, fair would be joint custody, even though you were willing to destroy our daughter's family for a fling with your high school boyfriend. Fair would be alimony, even though you're perfectly capable of supporting yourself. I leaned forward, letting her see the steel in my eyes. But I'm not feeling particularly fair right now. I'm feeling generous. I'm giving you a choice. Sign those papers, walk away clean, and we'll tell everyone it was mutual. Or fight me in court and let the whole town read your text messages in the newspaper. You wouldn't. Try me. She stared at the papers for a long time, and I could see her mind working, calculating, trying to find an angle, a way to turn this to her advantage. I need time to think. You've got 24 hours. After that, the offer expires, and we do this the hard way. She gathered up the papers and headed for the door. At the threshold, she turned back. This isn't over, Danny. Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet. That night, I called Lou. How'd she take it? About like you'd expect. She's looking for an angle. There isn't one. Tom Bradley's good at what he does. I know, but she'll try anyway. That's who she is. You sound different, son. Harder. Maybe I needed to be harder. Maybe I've been soft for too long. Just make sure you don't become something you can't live with. After I hung up, I sat in my workshop behind the house, surrounded by the tools and projects that had always been my refuge. Half-finished furniture, restored engine parts, the detritus of a man who liked to fix things, but some things couldn't be fixed. Some things were broken beyond repair. The next morning brought my answer. Not from Ava, but from Tom Bradley. She hired a private investigator, he told me. Professional outfit from Boston. They're digging into your finances, your business, looking for anything they can use. Let them dig. I've got nothing to hide. That's not the point. The point is she's not going down without a fight. You need to be ready for whatever they throw at you. What can they throw? I've never cheated, never lied about money, never done anything worse than work too hard. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes they'll twist your virtues into sins if it serves their purpose. He was right. I'd been naive to think Ava would just accept defeat. She'd been planning this divorce for months, probably had strategies I hadn't even considered. But I had something she didn't expect. I had nothing left to lose. That afternoon, I drove to the lakeside cabin I'd bought and renovated 3 years ago. It was supposed to be our retirement retreat, a place where Ava and I would grow old together. Instead, it had become another symbol of dreams that died hard. The cabin sat on 5 acres of pine and birch, overlooking a lake so clear you could see the bottom 20 feet down I'd rebuilt it from the foundation up, installing new plumbing, rewiring the electrical, adding a stone fireplace that could heat the whole place. It was beautiful. It was peaceful. And it was about to become the stage for the final act of my marriage. I spent the evening preparing, setting up cameras in discrete locations, testing the Wi-Fi connection, making sure everything was ready for what came next. Then I called Ava. "I've been thinking about what you said, about trying again." "Really?" The hope in her voice was almost pathetic. "Really. Why don't you come up to the cabin this weekend? We can talk without distractions, figure out where we go from here." "I'd like that. Should I bring Maddie?" "Let's make it just us for now. We need to work through our issues before we involve her." "Okay. Saturday afternoon?" "Perfect. I'll have everything ready." After I hung up, I called Tom Bradley. "I need you to do something for me, something that might not be entirely legal." "Danny, I can't." "Just listen, then tell me if you can live with it." I explained my plan. Tom was quiet for a long time. "That's not illegal," he said finally. "Unethical, maybe. Definitely ruthless. But not illegal." "Can you live with it?" "The question is, can you?" I looked out at the lake, at the water that reflected the sky like a mirror. Soon it would reflect the truth. All of it. "Yeah," I said. "I think I can." Saturday arrived gray and cold, with the kind of October wind that stripped leaves from trees and pretense from people. I got to the cabin early, making final preparations for what I knew would be either a reconciliation or a reckoning. I was betting on the reckoning. Ava arrived at 3 o'clock, driving the BMW I'd helped her pick out 2 years ago. She'd dressed carefully. Jeans that showed off her figure, a sweater that brought out her eyes, makeup applied with surgical precision. She looked like she was going on a date. In a way, she was. "The place looks wonderful," she said, surveying the cabin's interior. "You've done so much work since I was here last." That had been 8 months ago, back when she still pretended to care about our shared dreams. Now she was looking around like she was appraising real estate. "I thought we could talk by the fire," I said, "like we used to." "I'd like that." I opened a bottle of wine, her favorite, a Pinot Grigio that cost more than I usually spent on a week's worth of groceries. She settled onto the couch, tucking her legs under her like a cat. For a moment, I could almost pretend we were the couple we used to be. Almost. "Danny, I want you to know how sorry I am. About everything. About Ethan. About the things I said. About the way I handled our problems." "Are you?" "Sorry, I mean." "Of course I am. I love you. I've always loved you, even when I was confused about other things." "Confused? That's an interesting way to put it." She leaned forward, her hand finding mine. "I know I hurt you. I know I made terrible mistakes. But we can get past this. We can be stronger than we were before." "Can we? Even after everything you said about me? Everything you planned to do?" "I was angry. People say things they don't mean when they're angry. Show me your phone." The request caught her off guard. "What?" "Your phone. Show me your text messages with Ethan from this week." "Danny, that's not—" "Show me, or this conversation is over." She hesitated, then pulled out her phone. I scrolled through her messages, finding what I'd expected to find. What I'd hoped not to find, but expected anyway. Tuesday. Danny wants to reconcile. This might be my chance to get a better settlement. Wednesday. He's taking me to the cabin. If I play this right, I might not need a lawyer. Thursday. Wish me luck. By Sunday, I'll either have my old life back or a much better divorce deal. I handed the phone back to her. Still confused? Her face had gone pale, but she tried to recover. "Danny, you don't understand. I was just what? Just planning to manipulate me one more time? Just trying to figure out how to get the most money out of our divorce? Just playing the loving wife long enough to improve your negotiating position?" "It's not like that." "Then what is it like, Ava? Explain it to me." She stood up, pacing to the window that overlooked the lake. "You want the truth? Fine. The truth is that I'm 40 years old, and I feel like my life is over. The truth is that I married you when I was 25 and didn't know what I wanted. The truth is that I've spent 15 years watching other women marry doctors and lawyers and businessmen while I got stuck with a mechanic. There it is." I felt something cold and final settle in my chest. The real truth. Not that you were confused or angry or going through a phase. You think you married beneath yourself. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. It's been written all over your face for years. Every time someone asks what your husband does for a living. Every time we go to one of your office parties and I'm the only guy there without a college degree. Every time you introduce me as Danny, he owns a garage. You're being ridiculous. Am I? Tell me something, Ava. When you were planning your new life with Ethan, did you bother to check his credit report? Did you look into his business? Did you do any research at all, or were you just so desperate to trade up that you didn't care? What are you talking about? I pulled out a folder I'd prepared, full of documents I'd gathered over the past week. Ethan Morrison is broke. Worse than broke. He's drowning in debt. His business is failing, his house is mortgaged to the hilt, and he owes money to some very unpleasant people. She took the folder with shaking hands, scanning the papers inside. With each page, her face grew paler. This can't be right. It's all right. Credit reports, bank statements, court filings. Your knight in shining armor is riding a repoed horse. How did you get all this? Amazing what you can find out when you actually try. Something you might have considered before you decided to blow up our marriage for him. She sank back onto the couch, the folder scattered around her like the pieces of her broken dreams. He told me he was successful. He said he was expanding his business. He lied. Just like you lied to me. Just like you've been lying to yourself. What do you want from me, Danny? What do you want me to say? I want you to sign the divorce papers. And if I don't? I walked to the fireplace where I'd set up a laptop computer. With a few keystrokes, I brought up a video file. Then everyone gets to see this. The video showed Ava and Ethan in a motel room, clear as day, audio and all. She stared at the screen, her face draining of color. You recorded us? I documented your adultery, I said. The camera was on public property. No curtains. My lawyer confirmed everything. She whispered that I wasn't the man she married. I told her she was right. The man she married was naive enough to trust her, stupid enough to believe her lies, and weak enough to let her walk all over him. That man was gone. She killed him when she chose a broke car salesman over 15 years of marriage and tried to humiliate me in front of my own parents. I slid the divorce papers toward her. If you sign, the video and all the evidence disappear. You start fresh. If you don't, everyone sees this. Your boss, co-workers, friends, our daughter. With shaking hands, she signed. Mascara streaked down her cheeks, but I felt nothing. Not hate, not love, just empty calm. She asked what to tell Maddie. I told her to tell the truth, that she chose herself over her family and choices have consequences. Later, I burned the draft papers in the fireplace. The real copies were safe with my lawyer. I just wanted the ghosts gone. 15 years of marriage turned to ash in minutes, but for the first time in a long time, I felt warm. Weeks later, Maddie came to the shop. She said everyone at school was talking about her mom and Mr. Morrison. She asked if I hated Ava. I told her no. Hate took too much energy. I was just disappointed, and I'd rather spend my energy on her, on my work, on rebuilding. She hugged me and said she was proud of me for finally standing up for myself. As I went back to restoring a battered '67 Mustang, I realized that was my life now, taking something broken and making it strong again. I was 42, divorced, starting over, but I had my daughter, my business, and my self-respect. And for the first time in years, that was enough.